Hello, and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask what moves us, or more accurately, what's going to move us in future.
We look at debates, themes, and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future.
Good morning, everyone. How are we?
Morning.
Morning. Very well, thank you. Just
We've got
sponging my first pot of coffee of the day.
we've got Deb with us today. Hello, Deb.
Hello. And
What
lovely that you've recorded a podcast without me in the past.
Hey. We do these weekly. Don't you listen to them?
Oh, I listened to all of them. No, I haven't. I haven't listened to the last two, clearly. But
Rail
I'm
Report.
very happy to be here.
Good. And we're here today because we're going to talk about our Skills Beyond Scale program.
Yes. And even take us through the first bit about why we've done this work, Liam, because everyone is going to want to know that.
Well, for the benefit of the listeners, I am currently holding our report that is very glossy, says Skills Beyond Scale. And it's the third of our reports of Small Voices, Big Talent. And it's a reflection of the skills and benefits and unique positives that the smaller companies within the supply chain can make, obviously, if we turn our attention to them. So we did this report because we realized that in the conversations about digital skills, digitalization, AI, and AI, that as people are talking, it almost seems a bit flailing around trying to find skills and trying to understand it. We knew that within our supply chain of small SMEs, startups, micro companies, within our membership and our network, that there were some great things being built or insights that could be of benefit to the rest of the industry and indeed government if we look down to the grassroots of our membership and our wider community. So we wanted to package that up and reflect that back to government, which I think we've done quite well.
Yes, so do I. I think it's a really nice report, and it's a really I think that series of reports that we're doing has been quite successful in kind of showing right across the range of areas what our network is up to, and also what it's capable of in terms of driving innovation right through the sector and beyond, kind of thing. So it was really good to be at the launch and to meet lots of our members and non-members and hear from a couple of our members about what they're doing around skills. I think it was really interesting to have some of the conversations after the kind of main formal part of the launch, which I can talk a bit about. But just to hear it from some of the smaller companies and micro companies about actually how they recruit into some of the requirements that they have, and actually because that they seem to keep that. I mean, this isn't a sort of side, this isn't part of the analysis that we did. This is sort of post analysis conversations, but how flexible they are in terms of getting people into their companies, and then really kind of working with them and them being really responsive to what their challenges are and what their requirements are, and then them sort of tailoring any sort of further training and development opportunities around that. So it felt like a very kind of organic way of sort of facilitating the right skills within the business, which I suspect is not the same as not quite the same as how kind of bigger companies recruit in terms of those kind of skills. So which I sort of thought was quite interesting in a way. But I mean, is it worth just saying a bit about who was at the launch, who we heard from, that kind of thing? Do you want me to say something about that?
Yeah, I think, yes. If I can just, for the benefit of listeners who aren't fresh with it, we researched the paper. Very quick summary. We researched the paper last year. We then published our findings in February. We had a launch event last week, so we're in March now, 25. And then we're going to do a series of initiatives throughout 2025 on this theme.
Yeah. And I should say a little bit about how we did the research. So we obviously as we do with all of these small voices reports, we sort of began by listening. So we carried out a survey for our members, analysing kind of what their areas of expertise were around the kind of tech digital skills requirements. They've, that picked up on things like what their views were for the future of their industry, other related sectors where they were investing, what challenges there were. So it was quite a detailed bit of analysis that we did to begin with, and then we kind of followed that up with some deeper one-to-one conversations with each of the companies that took part, just to sort of understand in a bit more detail, around some of those kind of areas of engagement. And we did some group lunchtime, our sort of regular munch and learn sessions. We picked up on this theme, at a couple of them, and sort of tapped in to air some of the early findings from the survey, and have some sort of more in-depth conversations. So we felt that we had, that we had got a pretty comprehensive sort of report, really, from doing that work. And as you said, Liam, it did, it AI came up quite strongly, as you would suggest, in terms of what their kind of skill base and capabilities are within within our network. But it was also interesting to hear about how they're, where those different skills are being applied, I suppose. So, sort of tackling operational challenges, kind of customer experience within the rail sector, and also, looking at how they kind of the cross sort of fertilization of using of those skills, not just in rail, or when, so obviously some of our members are trying to get into rail and also working in other sectors. So it was, it was a really it's a really interesting discussion that we had there. We heard from we were hosted by the Railway Industry Association, which was great, and heard from Milda there about what RIA are doing more widely around in this kind of around this theme. And then, as I said, we heard from another couple of we heard from one member, Infinitive, who talked a bit about their kind of journey in terms of, building the skills up in their industry, and they're doing something quite interesting actually with recruitment, which I'm hoping we can get them back onto a podcast to talk about. So yeah, that's something that we can probably look to do.
Yes.
So you talked a lot about, why we did the research and the process and that, but what's actually in the report? What's the really interesting stuff?
Well, I mean, there's quite a lot in there, really. It's I mean, some of the way that we set it out is to really kind of bring forward a couple of sort of themes, really, I suppose. A lot of it, as Liam said, is around kind of what barriers there are in developing sort of digital skills. One of the things we looked at is kind of what the diversity of skills are. So we looked at kind of specialist expertise that are in there, which is like, mobility as a service, and that kind of thing. We looked at things like workforce resilience and adaptability. So we looked at things like how they're using emerging technologies to kind of look at workforce resilience. We looked at very particular areas where they're developing and expanding. So that was AI integration and robotics, quantum technologies. I'm looking at the list now. There's quite a long list. There's lots around sort of how they're using tech to kind of do marketing and that kind of thing. And then around stuff like, as I said, around customer experience design, cybersecurity was quite a key one. That was quite kind of rated as a sort of moderate priority in terms of skills. And then we looked at sort of emerging skills and where a lot of the companies were sort of coming up as sort of thinking that they needed to kind of develop those skills within their companies. And again, that was around sustainability, impact management, Internet of Things, robotics, that kind of thing. And again, the high priority skills, as you would imagine, were around sort of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and that kind of thing. So I think, what we concluded from all of it was that there's a lot of really deep skills in there that the kind of wider industry need to appreciate and support, really. and make it a lot easier. I mean, the purpose really of the report was to kind of put forward some asks to government, I suppose, around how to kind of support some of these smaller companies to bring their products to market, and to bring their, as a result of bringing their products to market, bring their skills into
Do
the
you
wider
get a
industry.
feeling that the skills we found in our members in this survey that we found is very niche and don't actually sit within wider industry, wider government, and that
Well, I
I
think, well, I think,
can help?
yes. So part of I'm just thinking over the executive summary again. Part of this is, as Deb said, there's a reflection of what our companies are working on, but there is a wider message, which is two, sorry. One is to large organizations and the rail industry itself is, if you're looking for these types of skills, look to your existing supply chain, just look to the bottom of it, because chances are the startups are working on it and they can help guide you to upskill your larger organization. Number two is, we've got a section over what the startups are working on over the next 3 to 5 years, which is probably quite scary for an established organization, because in 5 years' time, the products coming to market, probably you'll have to write a specification for a product that you don't fully understand, because the current state products will be life expired, the analog products. So you're going to have to commission a digital or an AI based product to replace a life expired asset. And yet you have no idea in your organization how to specify that, because you haven't been working on it. So I think the market is going faster than the rail industry itself.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
and that's going to impact on competitiveness. Sorry, Johanna.
no, I was just going to say, because I just think, do you think because everyone in the last 18 months has gone AI mad, even though it's sort of like existed for quite a while, that, we have all been taken by surprise by it?
Um, I think people have been taken.
And I say we, I mean sort of like, large organizations, government, the country, because lots of, I mean, because the companies that are our members and we talk to all the time, they've been working on this stuff for years. It hasn't just happened.
Correct. And a smaller company, it's easier to pivot, to put everything into a cloud and start pulling analytics from it. If you're a giant company with bits all over the place, pulling that all together, knitting it all together to then put an AI engine over the top of it is going to be a really big challenge.
Yeah, and I also think that there's I think a lot of well, probably government and others probably haven't quite appreciated the scope that there is to use AI, like across such, I think it's kind of, I think people see AI as being useful in very distinct areas, but actually there are multiple, there are multiple kind of areas where AI is going to be kind of really, really useful in terms of efficiency, or, across all sorts of areas, including areas like procurement, not just in sort of product design or, anything, right across the board. I think it's there that the conversations need to kind of happen really, and to deepen is about kind of where it's applicable, usefully applicable, and how, and then how that happens.
Yeah, I was going to say recruitment is another one that's being used massively and is trawling through potential candidates. It's all being done by an AI front end, which means that you need to understand what the engine is doing to be able to make sure that you flag as a pass.
Yeah.
It's all really, really interesting, isn't it? It is all really scary because I guess a lot of people are using AI to write their CVs now, aren't they? So presumably the AI that you're getting to write it can pick out the keywords.
Yeah, people
But
are using. I had a conversation yesterday with a colleague, not in rail actually. She works in another sector, and she's just come out of a long term job where she was employed by quite a large company. She works in the sort of arts tech sector, and she said to me that because she was been asked to do some freelance work, and she'd asked she'd used chat. She basically asked chat what she should be charging.
Hmm.
And I thought that was really hilarious. I said to her, "That's a bit of a weird thing to ask AI. That's like typing into chat, 'Should I leave my husband?'" And she said, "Is it?" And I was, and I don't know is the answer, but it just because obviously we all use chat and others are available, what have you. But it was just it to me it struck me as a really odd thing to ask, but actually it's not at all, is it? Probably, it is philosophically, it struck me that this is where the problem lies, is that no everyone sees the applicability very differently, I think. I mean, maybe you can ask chat whether you should leave your husband or not.
Maybe you should try it.
I don't have a husband, so it's fine. I don't need to know that. But
It should know that you don't.
other weird questions. But I'm being flippant. But there is that is actually quite that's quite a deep question, really, or a point that I'm making, probably really badly. But yeah.
But I think but the thing I think that's interesting, and we are getting a bit off topic of that, but the difference between sort of like, say, for research purposes between chat and Google
Mhm.
is that Google just sort of like randomly gives you lots of stuff, of which obviously advertising is part of it. So you have to sift to find it. Whereas quite quickly with chat, if you're researching sort of like something and you want it to come up with, sort of like, look for findings, to do with, what's the best way to walk, between here and Inverness, or so, between Pitlochry and Inverness, and can you also point out some interesting points in the world, give me some examples of places I can stop for coffee or whatever. That can put that together, an itinerary and that quite together, and then you can sort of like, then you can check it back that it's correct and things like that. And I think that's where the chat is a bit smarter, maybe, and maybe that's why, sort of like with the rates thing, it's quite a good example of, sort of like how people do use it.
I
Because
think
it can benchmark, it can benchmark against different rates and what type of client and that you have. So it is, as it says, a lot more intelligent because it can look for things.
But wedging in one of the Rail Innovation Group members here, that is the case study of transport you've just brought up is a valid problem in the transport industry, in that to be able to, for a chat to be able to tell you that journey, it has to be able to understand the network. And the rail network particularly does not give itself out as data points that chat can research.
It doesn't, but chat is quite good at doing itineraries. Even because, if you think, sort of like my husband and I, we travel around Europe quite a lot. And a decade ago, I'd have done all that research myself. And now I can just go into chat and say, we want to end up at this destination, and these are some of the places we might want to do along the way. These are our interests. Can you come up with a suitable itinerary? So it will come up with that, and then sort of like, and then it will give you sort of like the websites you then need to look at to find the information.
But you shouldn't
So
go to the website to find the information. That should be made as data that chat can use.
I get that it gives you the point here that which is the as well, which is I think is an interesting one. And again, we sort of pick up on that and make that point in the report is around. It really does highlight to me how important cross industry collaboration is around this kind of innovation, because I think that's where you know if you get rail definitely needs to do that more anyway, because it needs to do that in a way that is able to encourage people that are looking for jobs, particularly, I mean, interestingly, all of our uh members that I spoke to at the launch event were saying they don't have any problem recruiting into their businesses, but they're recruiting they're smaller businesses, so they're probably not paying massive salaries, potentially recruiting younger people. But they have it that they are those kind of companies where people see a future career and nice companies to work in and what have you. Whereas actually in rail, the opposite is true, and I think often people that they struggle to recruit. Um,
Yeah, because I've,
Certainly.
I've I've read, it's interesting because we're coming up to recruitment again. Has that been one of the surprises in the report about, and also your engagement at the launch event, Debs, about, how important recruitment is in this area? Because I've recently been engaging with a client, and this surprised me that they've had trouble with driver recruitment. I mean, who would have ever thought that you'd have problems with driver recruitment, because it's always been one of those jobs that, you get thousands of applications. But
Yeah, well, I suppose
do you think
that's
traditional jobs are no longer attractive, and these are sort of like the skills that young people now want to do and develop, and that's why,
You mean a train
our
driver?
members. Sorry?
You mean a train driver?
Yeah, so no, people don't want to be a train driver anymore. They want to do sort of like, they don't want sort of like fixed careers, that sort of like, you become a train driver and that's what you do for the
I
next
I
40
think
years.
I think I know that that's not something that we kind of covered in the report, but I think I mean, anecdotally, I think from other research that other people have done, I think that's that's kind of that's fairly clear. I think that is happening, and that younger people aren't necessarily going into particular careers where they're going to they see themselves, still being there. And they see themselves as doing. I suppose if you look at kind of innovation, you're not focusing in on one, in inverted commas, job, are you? You can go into an industry and you can work on one particular kind of or product or area, and you can move around within that company, and you can move around within the sector, and you can move around outside of the sector. So I suppose to some extent that really plays to kind of the strengths in terms of what people coming into their early careers will want, rather than thinking, I know I'm going to go and be a train driver and that's what I'm going to do for
So,
the rest
so
of
I'm
my
going to
life.
take that thought one step further, because I know that in parts of the world there, and in not many places in the UK, we have driverless trains. But on the network, it's always perceived as being a step too far. But presumably, with some of this technology that is now being developed, the future actually could be driverless trains, because this makes it easier to do.
Yeah,
I don't know if I necessarily see that. I think, there's lots of, I mean, if you go into a high speed rail train cockpit, there is a lot of it's highly technical, and you need a very different skill set to drive one of those trains. So I guess that it's for the industry to to promote those jobs. I don't know whether I don't know if I can, or maybe I'm just too old to be able to see a future
But
where
that is a
there's no drivers
possibility.
on trains.
The job of a train driver is a lot more technical than
Yeah, so I think
years ago.
it's kind of what is required is to kind of promote those jobs in a way that is appealing to that cohort of people that are coming out with those kind of those kind of skill sets, and perhaps don't see train driving as playing to those skill sets when actually it potentially does. So I think it's kind of the industry needs to kind of do that, really, to promote itself as a sector that is becoming much more highly technical and innovative. And I don't think, if you spoke to most young people and get asked for the top 5 areas where they could potentially go into work that would bring their highly technical skill set, I'd very much doubt whether rail would be in that top 5. So that's for industry to. But partly, that's the beauty of what we're doing here, is saying that we need more engagement. Bigger rail needs to engage with our networks, these smaller companies, because that's where they're bringing the innovation in.
That's I've for a long time been asked to speak at various events about skills and education, and it's always a message I give, in that people have stats about the rail industry and the workforce that's very male heavy, very not very diverse backgrounds and everything else. And I always remind people that you're putting a barrier around what you consider to be the rail industry. If you increase it to include all the startups and the digital suppliers, the diversity is much better balanced. But also, if you told those people they work in the rail industry, they would probably deny it, because the rail industry has quite a bad image outside. So just don't tell them. Keep them in it.
Yeah.
Don't tell all these tech companies that they actually work in rail.
Yeah. No, that's Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think at some point we need to flip that into everyone saying, yes, we all work in rail and it's great.
Really?
So, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So, Deb, what are our next steps? And tell us about our partner for the next steps.
So our next steps are, well, one of our next steps, as I mentioned, is that we are going to, I'd like to do possibly another podcast, but or even a follow-up piece, given that we've talked a lot actually on this call. We talked about the content of the report, but then we've also talked quite a bit about um recruitment and all of that kind of thing, which wasn't really part of the kind of remit of this particular report. So it seems like that's quite an interesting area that we could explore, whether that's with another report, whether that's just with a kind of a um what am I saying, a podcast, or whether it's, perhaps a follow-up or whatever. But I think that there's quite a lot of interesting stuff around that. But then from this, we are now working with a new member called Avinto, who are partnering with us to do some kind of follow-up round tables, really, we're calling them, or summits, perhaps is a better word. Avinto, I should say, produce they orchestrate old software and new software to be able to work together efficiently.
So that if you do want to put an AI engine onto what you're doing, you don't need to get the legacy systems to understand AI or to work with it. You just take sort of a feed. You pull the relevant information separate from the legacy system and then use it. And that's what they do.
Yes. So they are partnering with these three tech summits, which is really exciting. It's the first time we've done that. So we're running those this year. So the first one is at the end of June.
I was say, what is
Yeah.
the desired outcome of these events?
Well, we certainly do some comms around it. We'll certainly produce probably some case studies. I mean, to some extent, it will be. We don't want to be too prescriptive about what those discussions will be. But I would suspect we will certainly get some good case study material out of it. We may want to end up after all three roundtables to put that into some kind of a follow-up report where we've just, where we've got a set, perhaps a couple of case studies around each of the three summit themes. I know we'll definitely do some, we'll do some promotion on LinkedIn around that. Still talking to hosts. If anyone's listening to this and thinks, oh, one of those is really interesting and we'd love to come and we'd love to host, then get in touch, because we're still working up all of the detailed program for this. Yeah.
By all means, become a member.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Become a member and be involved in this program.
Of relevance to this program, which we are doing an event on the now confirmed for 13th of May, which is going to be in Stratford in London. And that is going to be with one of our members, Think in Circles, which is about becoming the employer of choice. So it actually pulls on this theme of improving your company's brand so people want to work for you. So it makes recruitment easier. Right, that's a year-long program of exciting skills beyond scale and small voices with big talent.
We should mention also that we're going to try and organise an event with Baramis Rail, who are one of our newer members, to do something where we do like a test bed of a couple of members' tech or what have you on the Varamis train, just to kind of promote the Varamis freight trains as high-speed freight trains, I should say, as sort of being fully functioning in-service trains that can kind of run that sort of thing. So we're looking at doing a kind of test bed event where we promote our members that are testing their tech, and obviously also promote Varamis on a train, probably between Birmingham and Glasgow.
Lots to look forward to.
Yes, exactly. Very busy. We are very busy this year.
We are very busy. Join us, support us, help fund at what we do.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So we'll speak to you all next week. But in the meantime, if you're interested in what we do, sign up and become a member.
Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Till next time.